the conversation. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring in Nadia is a young artist that I met. I met her actually a couple of times, and she's out of. I met her last time at the spoken word competition at Hayti. And one of the things that she's doing is she's putting these shirts together that feature our history. So they kind of like have an African image and the image of America. And she's been doing this, and she's a young lady doing this kind of business and everything. So Nadia, tell us a little bit about African Americans Are Beautiful, because that's kind of like you started this not that long ago, because you're you are a mom yourself, but you're a fairly recent graduate. You know, I think you and some of your friends were telling me that you got out like maybe about 10 or 11 years ago. So compared to me, that's fairly recent.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing tonight?
All right. Doing good.
Good. So African Americans Are Beautiful is exactly how you described it. It's basically incorporating the outline of Africa and America in every design. It's all original artwork. And, I certainly just created it because I thought it was a good way to just highlight who we are as a people and just the beauty of us. That's why it's called African American the Beautiful. It's based off of the song America the Beautiful, but just enhanced with African in it. And so I get a lot of great feedback from the art that I do, and so that just tells me that people were feeling the same way that I do. So I'm just really honored that people are, really taken by it and love it just as much as I do.
What made you decide that you wanted to go into this kind of field? Because, entrepreneurship is not an easy field, Nadia. And I imagine that even Dr. Noni can tell you, because having a school is also a form of entrepreneurship. And I'm thinking that you probably encourage some of your students to also go into entrepreneurship since you've been around for a number of years. I'm thinking some of your students have also gone on and started their own lines or different other kinds of businesses.
Exactly. Of course.
Yeah, definitely. And the same thing for me. I actually left an education position as well, so we're all kind of educators in the mix. I left my job in December as an alternative learning coordinator as a teacher in Wake County, and trying to do this full-time as a mom and a businesswoman is super tough, but I think I'm more motivated to kind of create the life that I would like to live as opposed to, spending 10 or 15 years not doing something that I feel like I'm called to do, or at least not rising to my fullest potential. So that was my decision. I first started kind of dabbling into entrepreneurship maybe about 6 years ago. I actually had a desire to have a thrift store, so I ended up getting a daycare bus, taking out all the seats. And I used to travel around to events, and I created a little mobile boutique. So this isn't my first rodeo. I'm still kind of new to the whole entrepreneur aspect, but I really think that black businesses are so wide open. I feel like anybody who can start a black business, do start a black business, and I'm so elated that she's starting a school because we need so many more schools for our people, for our kids. So that's kind of with me, and I just really took a heart for it, and I just love entrepreneurship because you can basically make it whatever you want, and then you can also teach others about it as well. So that's what I really like about it.
No doubt about that. And one of the things I'm curious to hear from you, one thing I did want to let you know that Dean, my co-host, his wife, Anna, has her own entrepreneurship business, and he can tell you about that during the course of the show. But then she, along with two of her friends, also have Three Harlem Sisters. So they've got various businesses that they do out of like the New York, New Jersey area where Dean is based out of. So they've definitely been keeping track of doing some entrepreneurship and definitely being strong African-American women that are doing this kind of business on a regular basis. Of course, as we said at the beginning, this is the time of people remembering the legacy of Dr. King and things of that nature. Some of us might, I was probably a kid myself when Dr. King was, I was a kid when Dr. King was assassinated. Some of you weren't even born when Dr. King was around and everything. But just out of curiosity, what was your thoughts of the legacy of Dr. King and what Dr. King means to you as both an educator and a business owner?
Well, I definitely feel.
Oh, okay.
You can go ahead. You can answer first.
Yes, I didn't know.
Go ahead, Doctor. Go ahead. I was referencing both of you, but we'll defer to Dr. Noni first, and then we'll come to Nadia.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure. Okay, well, for me, I feel like what I teach my children is that we have to really reevaluate exactly what we were trying to achieve as a people during this time. And I was born in '61. So I remember the conversations in my home and the conversations with my grandparents. And so my people were kind of on the line with this. They wanted to have schools where we had access to resources and access to a better quality education. But there was also a lot of concern about being in an integrated environment where our children were now placing their bodies into spaces where there were very negative attitudes and stereotypes about them. And so I remember those conversations, and I remember my mom, there was quite a bit of alarm about it. So, they weren't like 100% integration, which is probably why I have this African-centered school. But, and I think that we felt like we were compromising our humanity. What is really integration? When I think of what integration should be, it should be a classroom where you go in, the teacher broaches a subject, she puts English, or she puts science on the board, because I teach the science over here. So she puts chemistry on the board. Okay, so that means that I should, when we start talking about the Bohr method or Bose-Einstein, or we start talking about scientists, we should have Chappelle up there. We should have Ernest Everett Just up there. We should have, Native American chemists or ideas of what, how did they practice chemistry in the development of medicines and development of, their agricultural practices. What did they do with chemistry? How did they apply chemistry in ancient Africa? How did they apply chemistry in Europe? How did the Japanese do it? How did the Hispanic people do it? And so when you are in that classroom, true integration is when everybody's culture is considered. That is not what happened. And so what has been the consequence of it? So I'm not saying we have not made any gains from integration, but I think that the African American community needs to not only reevaluate it, but we need to take strides to correct it. What can we do to fix this problem? We know that the curriculum is not reflective of our children. We know that you have multiple learning styles, and so we have this testing that does not reflect or does not consider the multiple learning the ways that the children learn. And so we are continuously this thing is strategy. I'm trying to think, what is the word? It's stratifying our community, and only a few people are actually able to successfully move through this. And in the African community, the traditional African community, it was Ubuntu. The whole community was measured by the quality of life for everybody. That is not the way this system is operating. So what can we do to fuse in our worldview into the school system? And at this point, I could not sacrifice my children. My oldest is now 33, and my youngest is 18. I could not sacrifice them for that space, for people to figure that out. And so, but that's what I think of with Dr. King. I'm like, do we really know what his expectations were? And did we let him down by not keeping, staying focused on what his vision was for us as a community? And did we kind of allow other people to influence it and take it down a road that we now maybe we shouldn't have gone down, or maybe we shouldn't have surrendered so easily? And I know that's controversial.
No,
that's controversial, but that's where I stand.
No, and I think that's a very valid point and a very legitimate point. Nadia, what are some of your reflections on Dr. King? And actually, I want to come to something else that might be controversial as well, but we like controversy on Straight Talk. So, but Nadia, what are some of your views on Dr. King and things of that nature?
I definitely think that we need to be just like him in the sense of walking in our greatness. I think that, whether it's parenting, like parenting our children better, taking care of our neighborhoods better, owning more homes, walking in our gifts and talents, I think that is the key to, the Black legacy to a degree, is just, everybody kind of stepping in their own. And the more we step in Black excellence of who we already know we are, we won't have to be so dependable on people who are not like us. Like, there's no reason that we don't have Black towns, Black grocery stores, Black toy stores, Black dry cleaners, Black daycares, all in the same vicinity where everybody knows everybody, where everybody has their homes built and they have their own sector, their own part of the country, even though that can be controversial as well, because you always have your naysayers who are going to say, well, they'll just destroy that, or that'll end up happening there. But it doesn't stop us from trying and, being strengthened in our community. And I think that's what we're really, really, really lacking. We should already have, an idea of what we want to do with our seniors. We should already take care of our affordable housing for our own people. We don't have to look to somebody else to do that. And I think the moment that every single Black person in America lives up to their full potential, then yes, you're right. Like Dr. Noni will have a school. You guys will have a radio station. I can have a clothing line. But all of those things can expand to other things as well. And then when you have the midst of that, you also have your children and your children's children, right? So it's just one of those things that I think we have to rewrite the book. And I think what he was fighting for, of course, was us being judged by our character. But we know that is very it's flawed, in the sense of we still not judged by our character. So I think that people go between the integration and the segregation and feeling like, to a sense, we kind of need to be with our people so that we can grow in our Black power and just kind of be independent of everybody else. And I personally kind of feel like that's where we're kind of going, because we're being pushed to go that place. And I feel like once we realize the brilliance that we are and, like every other culture, I think we'll be absolutely fine. But that's another reason why I created the brand, is because it is to highlight who we are. We don't have to be like anybody else.
Yeah, because it's interesting you bring that up, because you actually bring up 2 points that I wanted to hear y'all elaborate a little bit more on. But you talk about the need to have these kind of communities, and we've had these kind of communities. I mean, right there in Hayti was the historical Hayti district. Of course, we've had, which was Black Wall Street. There was a Black Wall Street in Tulsa. There were Black Wall Streets around the country. And we do have entrepreneurs that come around, and they're part of, like, the new Black Wall Street and things of that nature. And I know that when I've talked to some of them, they sometimes feel that they can develop these Black businesses, but they can't necessarily have the Black business within the Black neighborhood. I'm not saying all of them, but I have had this conversation where some of them feel that we will never be able to recreate another Black Wall Street. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because I think that we can create a Black Wall Street that you just described, where it's in our community and it's a lot of the different kind of things, whether that's a film house, whether that's a store, whether that's we already have the funeral home, or whether that's the banks, or whether that's the different other kind of businesses. And then the other part that I'm curious to hear with y'all's thoughts on is that definitely we are getting pushback. Definitely when Obama was elected, he was president for 2 terms. A lot of people think, as we just alluded to when I was talking about the endorsement that the New York Times gave, is the reason we got Trump is that it was a pushback from some of our European brethren in terms of, like, the fact that a Black man had been elected, so they wanted to go the opposite extreme and elect somebody that's definitely, some people would say conservative, ultra-conservative. Some people would just be like me and Dean and say that he's crazy. But that's just our opinion.
I just want to answer real quick. I think when you get to why such and such is doing what and whoever's doing whatever, you lose focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And not that those things aren't a factor, but I do believe, like, we all know, y'all were talking sports earlier. Seldomly do I think that people actually worry about what the team is doing. If their team is off, then that's what I need to be focused on. If they end up beating us later, then maybe we need to watch tape. Like I heard somebody talk about that before, but that's after the fact. I think while we're in the midst of it, our team needs to worry about our team. And I just think that we need to make sure that we're rising to our best potential. Like if you have Black millionaires, those Black millionaires need to be investing in Black businesses so that those people can rise up too, so we can kind of multiply. And I just kind of feel like there is possibility for a black Wall Street. There is possibility for black neighborhoods, but I